I find people very interesting. It's like you're opening a door and you're being in some deep way entertained and you're learning things. We spend more time alone, and so I think we're reading more poetry. I feel that it's a time of looking inward, and somehow poetry is very significant. The racism that's always been inherent, obviously there was always racism in the United States, especially in the southern states, and yet now it's much more public. It's hard to escape that. In my own writing, I often write about racial issues. Once in a while, I will try to write a novel or try to write a story from the perspective of a victim. People who live in suburban neighborhoods with a sort of majority white population, they or we have been more or less spared confronting the racial inequities. We are much more aware of them now because of social media. You have individuals recording acts of unspeakable violence by police officers, just ordinary citizens who are doing this. These are voices that were muted before. I think that's really unexpected and in a way revolutionary. Kind of patriarchal oppression of some women and some girls, and not all men or boys are patriarchal. I tend not to write about these large abstractions, but really to write about individuals. But if something happens to a girl that is violent, it would be, to me, part of her story, but then I would be focusing on the consequences. How does she deal with it? How does her family deal with it? How does she move into the next stage of her life? To me, that's what's interesting rather than the act of violence itself. I'd have to really think about that because many of these writers are my former students. I can't start naming names. I'm sometimes astonished at how good they are. I had a wonderful writer last semester, a woman writer. She was probably in her 40s. And I found out later that she had had a book published. I don't really know the answer to that. I think we are as good writers as the projects we take on, how ambitious your project is. If you're trying to write the equivalent of a War and Peace, you may not succeed, but yet that's a wonderful attempt. But if you're trying to write lyric poetry about your own experience, you may succeed, but it's not as ambitious. It doesn't really, in a way, involve as many other people. So, and aiming for large audiences or being content with small audiences, all those things enter into the factors. Alice is this fantastic heroine. She's only 7 years old. She's astonishingly mature. And when I was rereading, I was struck by how outspoken Alice is. Most children, especially little girls of 7, don't disagree with adults. And so that's remarkable that Joyce Carol was characterizing a little girl of 7 with enough courage and self-sufficiency to stand up to adults. Therefore, I think the book is probably extremely valuable. I was much shyer than Alice, and I didn't have the experiences Alice had. She is catapulted into a nightmare world. I think I'm just very interested in the students, individuals, seeing how they develop. I find people very interesting. It's like you're opening a door and you're being in some deep way entertained.